Somewhere in the world right now, there is a person who looks almost exactly like you. Same face shape, same bone structure, same expressions. A stranger you have never met, living a completely different life, but wearing your face. This is not a myth. This is not a superstition. This is science. In 2022, a team of geneticists led by Dr. Manel Esteller at the Josep Carreras Leukemia Research Institute in Barcelona published a groundbreaking study that proved something most people thought was impossible. Your doppelganger, your lookalike, doesn't just share your face, they share your DNA, and possibly your habits, your weight, your height, and even your education level. The science of human doubles is real, and what it reveals about the nature of identity might be the most unsettling thing you hear all year. It all started with a photographer. Since 1999, Canadian artist François Brunel has been traveling around the world documenting something extraordinary: pairs of complete strangers who look nearly identical to each other. His project, called I'm Not a Lookalike, has captured intimate portraits of hundreds of unrelated people who could easily pass as twins. Same jawlines, same eyes, same smiles. People from different countries, different cultures, different continents, yet their faces are so similar that even their own families struggle to tell them apart. Brunel's photographs caught the attention of Dr. Esteller, who had spent years studying epigenetics, the science of how genes are turned on and off by environment and behavior. Esteller looked at those photographs and asked a simple question that nobody had ever scientifically tested. If these people look identical on the outside, what's happening on the inside? Are their genomes similar too? He recruited 32 pairs of Brunel's lookalikes. Each person submitted a saliva sample for DNA analysis and answered detailed questionnaires about their lifestyle, habits, and physical characteristics. Then, Esteller's team ran the photographs through 3 different facial recognition algorithms, the same type of software used by law enforcement and airport security, to compute an objective similarity score for each pair. The results were extraordinary. 16 of the 32 pairs received similarity scores equivalent to those of actual identical twins. The software literally could not tell them apart from real twins. These 16 pairs were classified as ultra lookalikes. Then the team looked at their DNA, and this is where things got strange. 9 of those 16 ultra lookalike pairs shared a remarkably high number of common genetic variants, specifically 19,277 single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs. These are tiny variations in the DNA sequence that differ between individuals. The fact that unrelated strangers shared this many genetic similarities was unprecedented. Esteller called them virtual twins. But the surprises didn't stop at DNA. When the researchers analyzed the questionnaires, they found that the lookalike pairs also shared behavioral and physical traits. They were more likely to have similar body weight, similar height, similar education levels. And here is one of the strangest findings. They were more likely to share the same smoking habits. If one doppelganger smoked, their lookalike was significantly more likely to smoke as well. Think about that for a moment. 2 people who have never met, who grew up in different families, in different cities, sometimes in different countries, and yet they look the same, weigh roughly the same, reached similar education levels, and made the same choice about whether or not to smoke. That is not coincidence. That is genetics expressing itself through behavior. But there was one area where the doppelgangers were completely different: their epigenomes and their microbiomes. The epigenome is the layer of chemical instructions that sits on top of DNA and determines which genes are active and which are silent. It is shaped by environment, lifestyle, diet, stress, and experience. The microbiome is the community of bacteria living in and on your body. Each doppelganger pair had completely different epigenomes and completely different microbiomes. This means that while genetics gave them the same face and similar tendencies, their life experiences made them fundamentally different people on a molecular level. Esteller summarized it perfectly. He said, "Genetics gives you the blueprint. Epigenetics decides what gets built. 2 people can have the same blueprint, but the buildings they construct with their lives are unique. So, the question becomes, how many doppelgangers are out there? Is it possible that you have one? The mathematics of this question are fascinating. In 2015, forensic anthropologist Dr. Tegan Lucas at the University of Adelaide measured nearly 4,000 faces across 8 distinct facial features. Things like the distance between the eyes, the width of the nose, the length of the ears. She calculated that the probability of 2 people having exactly the same measurements across all 8 features is less than 1 in a trillion. 1 in a trillion. With 8 billion people on Earth, that means a perfect, mathematically exact doppelganger is extremely unlikely. But here is the catch. Human perception doesn't work like a measuring tape. Our brains don't analyze faces millimeter by millimeter. We perceive faces as a whole, a sum of parts. We look at the overall shape, the expression, the proportions, the feeling a face gives us. And when you factor in perception rather than precise measurement, the odds change dramatically. The website Twin Strangers, which uses facial recognition technology to match people with their lookalikes, claims to have identified at least 9 million doppelganger matches worldwide. Popular science lore suggests that each person has roughly 7 lookalikes somewhere in the world. And when you think about it, the math starts to make sense. The human face is built from a finite set of genetic instructions. There are only so many possible eye colors, nose shapes, jaw structures, cheekbone positions, and lip sizes. With 8 billion people alive and over 100 billion who have ever lived, the genetic combinations that create faces will inevitably repeat. Not perfectly, but close enough to fool the human eye and even fool facial recognition software. As Estelle explained, there are so many people in the world right now that eventually, people who share a higher number of genetic variants are expected. In other words, doppelgangers aren't a glitch in the matrix. They are a mathematical certainty. The implications of this research go far beyond curiosity. Esteller's team believes that facial similarity could one day be used as a medical screening tool. If your doppelganger has a genetic predisposition to diabetes, cancer, or heart disease, and you share enough of their DNA, then your face could serve as an early warning system. Doctors might someday analyze a photograph of your face and predict your risk for certain diseases, simply by comparing your features to a genetic database. Law enforcement sees potential too. If facial features are as genetically determined as this research suggests, then it might be possible to reconstruct the face of an unknown criminal from DNA left at a crime scene. Not perfectly, but well enough to narrow down suspects. And then there is the philosophical question. If someone out there shares your face, your genes, your weight, your habits, at what point do they stop being a stranger and start being a version of you? If genetics can predict not just how you look, but how you behave, your smoking habits, your education, your body composition, then how much of who you are is actually your choice? The ancient Greeks believed that doppelgangers were omens. In Norse mythology, seeing your double, your vardiger, meant death was near. In folklore across dozens of cultures, the lookalike was seen as a dark mirror, a spirit wearing your skin, a warning from the universe. Science now tells us something different. Your doppelganger is not a ghost. They are not a warning. They are a consequence of mathematics, genetics, and the simple fact that there are only so many ways to build a human face. They are proof that the code that created you has been run before, and will be run again. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone who looks like you is living a life you will never know about. They laugh like you. They frown like you. They carry the same genetic instructions in every cell of their body. The only difference is the life they lived with those instructions. Your face is not as unique as you think, and the person wearing a copy of it is closer than you imagine. This has been the Odd Vault. If this unlocked something in your mind, subscribe, because we open a new vault every week. What they didn't tell you, we will.